Yo, yo, get up, nah, I ain't a quitter. Toss me the ball, I'm a really big hitter. Big picture, I'm a straight killer. Rising the song to the highest bidder. Got juice, got gas, I'ma move fast. New shoes, new tracks, like who's that? I'm new, come back, better than last. Yeah, it's a new me, never gonna look back. I'm never gonna look back. Cause damn, I was built to last. You move slow and I move fast. And that's facts.
What's going on, everyone? And welcome to another edition of the Chicago Sports Podcast. I am your host, Brandon, joined by Jay the Voice Simmons. Jay, how you doing?
Doing great, man. Good to be here.
Yes, and I'm excited for this one, Jay. I really am. This is a prospect whom I love. I've wanted the Bears to target if it's possible, if he falls to them. So let's dive right into this.
Yeah,
There was
let's
a
do it.
conversation that was captured via audio and video between Dennis Allen and Ryan Poles, where Dennis Allen asked Ryan Poles, "Where do you have him ranked on your board?" That's the term he used, him. The belief is because of the exterior wall in the room is reflecting an image of Mason Graham off the television. The belief is that Mason Graham, the defensive tackle, three technique prospect out of Michigan, is the player that Dennis Allen is referring to as him. Might also speculation they might also be talking about Travis Hunter, the defensive back wide receiver out of Colorado, or Abdul Carter, the monster pass rusher out of Penn State, who is by all measures ranked the number one prospect in this draft. But focused on Mason Graham specifically, um, Ryan Poles responds to this question. I have him at number two or even possibly number one. Jay, if they are referring to Mason Graham, Ryan Poles just brought in an offensive head coach in Ben Johnson. If he has identified Mason Graham as his number one prospect, the defensive tackle out of Michigan, how do you feel about that?
I feel pretty good because that means he's going to shore up the defense a little bit with some major help on the run game, stop the run game, and get the offense of the ball a lot sooner than they would normally get it if you just stick with what you've got. And I think this guy is a game changer.
Yeah, and I couldn't agree with you more. After the additions they've made in the offseason, I do, after the additions of Tooney and Jackson and Dahlman, I do rank this offensive line, at least on paper, somewhere in the top 12 in regards to units in the NFL. This defensive line, even after the additions of Deo and Grady Jarrett, I still have them somewhere between, I want to say 16 to 22. I still put them out of the bottom half of the NFL. So I'd be very excited if they address the defensive line with that 10th overall pick. And by all measures, Mason Graham is probably a top three prospect in this draft. So if the Bears are able to draft him at 10, it means that he fell to you, which is huge. We did see this happen with Jalen Carter, and they chose to pass on him anyways. But the character concerns aren't really there with Mason Graham. Matter of fact, this kid seems to be all heart and especially all motor. He has probably got the highest motor, if you ask me, in this draft. And again, I would be ecstatic if this player falls to them at 10. I don't think if he does, I don't think you have an option. I think you
No,
kind of
you've
got to draft this guy. And if it isn't Mason Graham, if they're looking at maybe Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter, which I'm gonna pretty much just say now, Jay, these guys probably don't fall to you at 10. Is there one of those two that you like more than the other?
I'm going to go with Hunter. I think with his all over overall skill level, I think he's great, and that's the type of guy the Bears are looking for right there. But I think if you can get to Mason Graham, I read a bunch of stuff on him, and everything that I read said he brings a nastiness to that defensive line, especially when he was at Michigan. He brought just a mean, angry, and and I reflect back on the Bears, of old, and I go, man, that's Bear territory right there.
Yeah, he's been referred to as, and I love this word, the V word. He's been referred to as violent, and guys, we're not talking about like a criminal who's breaking into homes. They're talking about the way this guy plays on the field. He's not your friend, even in practice. He's hitting hard. This guy wants contact. He looks for it. He's an animal. He's reckless. I mean, there's no single guard in the NFL that could probably take this guy one on one. So this is a wrecking ball by all measures. And I was glad to hear you say that, Jay, because if I asked most people that question, Hunter or Carter, I think I'm going to get Carter probably 9 out of 10 times. I love Travis Hunter. I think he's probably my favorite player in this draft. Obviously, guys, it's not very often that a player can provide you both skill on offense and defense. He was one of the NCAA's best wide receivers and one of their best defensive backs. So it'd be really exciting if Ryan Poles was referring to Travis Hunter as well. But like I said, Mason Graham seems a little more achievable at the 10th overall pick. And I am excited that, Dennis Allen's going to get his too. I know that the Bears need to address the offensive line still. A left tackle is probably their biggest position of need. But if you see guys like Will Campbell and Banks fall off the board before you make your pick, if Mason Graham's there, there's no question to me. This is the best player. He's a blue chip talent. He is the best player available at 10U if he's still there, right?
That's right. And one of the things I read up on him as well is that he's got great hand play. And one of the things that, and they said that his great hand play was because he was a very, very good high school wrestler. So, all those kids that only play one sport, this is a great learning tool right here. This guy was a great wrestler in high school. They didn't mention how far he went in terms of going to state or wherever, whatever. But for him to be a two sport athlete, and that's a great transition from football to wrestling, wrestling to football. So a lot of that aggressiveness and nastiness is learned not only on the wrestling mat, not only on football field, but also on the wrestling mat. So that to me is that's where his true heart is, and he's, like you said, he's got that motor, and that's something else that he learned probably in wrestling as well.
Yeah, you're not wrong about that. You can't be afraid of confrontation if you're a wrestler. I mean, that's literally all it is physical contact, and you're basically. I mean, there's a lot of skill to it and a lot of technique, but you're basically just trying to overstrength the guy across from you. And like I said, I think this implies one thing more specifically is that Ryan Poles is going to go after the best player available more than the greatest need because they do have Jervon Dexter, and a lot of Bears fans will tell you today that he is more than capable of being the starting three tech on this football team. But defensive line depth never hurts. The Philadelphia Eagles
No.
showed us that in the Super Bowl. So if you have a rotation of Mason Graham and Jervon Dexter, I think you're going to be sitting okay when the season starts, right?
Yeah, and definitely. And think about if those two guys are on the field at the same time, they're going to have to decide, okay, which one of these two are we double teaming?
Yeah.
So that's going to free up one of the other ones to get into the backfield or, stop a run play. So, I mean, I think, at times they can both be on the field. And, they talked about another thing about Mason Graham is he's versatile enough. He can play the zero technique all the way out to the five technique. So he's no stranger to being moved around on the defensive line.
Yeah, he has played everywhere, and he comes from a great program in Michigan that develops pro players. I mean, they do, right? Even the guy who played next to him last year, Kenneth Grant, looks like he's going to be a potential first round pick. He is their one technique. He's a nose tackle, but the Bears, I think, have probably taken a look at him after they went to Michigan's pro day as well. And Mason Graham, by all measures, is what Ryan Poles is looking for. I mean, he's not shy to say this. Even if there is a left tackle like Banks or Campbell available, I wouldn't be surprised if he went Graham anyways, because he has repeatedly said this is the closest guy to the quarterback when the ball is hiked, right? You want pass rush from the interior line, right?
Yeah, definitely. And at 305, and he runs a 5.07 on the 40, he's going to get that push going straight up the field, and that's going to collapse the pocket and make those defensive ends, feed off of that.
Yeah, and he's also a multiplier. I believe that Kenneth Grant kind of a lot of his success came from the abilities that Mason Graham has, and I think that a guy like Montez Sweat and a guy like Deu and Grady Jarrett, who the Bears just added, would actually benefit from the rookie. And is there anything else in regards to Ryan Poles stating that he's targeting a defender as his number one or number two prospect, and Dennis Allen asking the question? Anything else that you feel like we should get out there?
No, what the one thing I do think is that that's great yin and yang. You got the offensive coordinator coming in as the new head coach. Now all of a sudden you're going on defense for the first round. I think that's great by the everybody at Hallis Hall to think that way. Because usually if you bring in a head coach that's going to be offensive minded, now all of a sudden you're thinking, hey, I got a draft of an offensive guy first round. It's great that they're thinking this way.
Yeah, especially at the 10th pick. You can never, you don't want to you don't want to think too hard to identifying your needs versus just taking the best player available to you. And I agree with you. Dennis Allen, we don't want to neglect Dennis Allen. The guy has proven that he can run a top 10 defense in the NFL as long as you give him the pieces he requires. Jay, always a
Yeah.
pleasure. I do want to give a shout out to Trax for giving us this opportunity once again. And bear down, guys.